Alright, if I was going to get started in photography or videography in 2025, the first camera that I would definitely pick up would be the A7IV. Now the reason why I would get the A7IV and that I'm recommending it is that I got this camera 3 years ago, right when it first came out, and I haven't looked at upgrading it once. I haven't even thought about it. Now if you're new here, my channel's mission is to inspire people to chase and pursue photography and videography as their passion, turn that hobby into their passion project, and finally jump in, get that first camera, and start creating. Alright, so the first reason why I would recommend the A7IV as your first starting camera is that it has an extremely high quality full frame sensor that reads out at 33 megapixels. Now you may be wondering, like, why do I even need megapixels? Well, megapixels are really going to set apart your image quality. The A7IV has a versatility because it has a high megapixel count. So you have an extremely dense, high quality sensor that's going to give you amazing video quality at the price point. So high resolution sensors can really enhance the depth and dynamic range of how your photos and videos are going to look when you shoot them. You can actually shoot, and if you need a crop, then you can easily crop in on the image. You really can't even tell that you cropped in because that dense megapixel count, you can crop in and it still looks amazing, still has super high quality. And trust me, there's gonna be times where you shot something and there's gonna be just something that you wanna do and like add a little bit more perspective, punch in a little bit, and boom, now you have a perfect photo. Or if you wanna use those photos as a cover image, say for reels that are 9:16, you can easily crop in on a photo like that, and you're gonna easily be able to use that at a 9:16 format and get that really nice image even with a crop in. All right, let's look at some examples from my A7IV that I've taken, and you can see the ability, if you need to, you can crop in and punch into a picture and still retain beautiful detailed images because of the high megapixel count on the A7IV. All right, so if you look at this photo, you can see that I shot it landscape, and now what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna punch in, and you can see why having a high megapixel count really matters when you're trying to reframe an image. Now let's talk about autofocus. The A7IV's autofocus is amazing. It really enables you to capture really high quality, on target, in focus video and photo images, especially the way that it locks onto your eye. As you can see right now, I have a white box that's around my eye and it's locked onto me. It's super fast, it works amazingly. I've been using it since day one, since I got the camera. It's really helpful if you're capturing a dynamic image. Say like if a model is constantly switching poses, or if you're doing video, it stays locked onto your subject. It really keeps them in focus without having to manually do everything. Especially when you're doing talking head videos, you know, you're moving around constantly, and if you're filming them by yourself, you don't want to have to try to adjust focus for every single second of the shot, and it just does it for you, and it makes your life so much easier. And Sony's autofocus is the best in the game. And what's really cool, Sony also offers a bunch of different autofocus features. So whether that be eye autofocus on humans, it even has animal autofocus. Some Sony cameras even have bird autofocus. Newer Sony cameras actually have plane autofocus, car autofocus, like object autofocus. So the list goes on and on. Sony's autofocus is just insane, and that's one of the main reasons why I've just decided to stay in Sony for so long. Even though the A7IV is 3 years old, its autofocus is still one of the best in the game. So one of the most important reasons why you should get the A7IV is that it has a really future-proof design. The A7IV series has always been that hybrid go-to camera. I got it 3 years ago now, and I haven't felt the need to upgrade it at all. Its camera quality still holds up to today's standards. Its autofocus is still amazing. Low light capabilities. Sony has incredible dynamic range for if you're shooting in low light situations. Nobody's better at low light than Sony, even on an A7IV. It has highly customizable settings. So the A7IV actually has a bunch of different customizable buttons that you can set up however you want and really customize your camera. So I've done a bunch of different settings where I can actually set a manual white balance and lock it to, and then map it to one of these buttons. So if you see here, it has a dial on the top, and you can actually save different video or picture profiles So you can have one that's set up for like 4K 30, 4K 60, or if you want to do 1080, 120, whatever you want to set it up as, you can save those presets and you just turn the dial and it'll switch all of your settings. Now, of course, I would have to definitely mention the biggest gripe about the A7IV is that the 4K 60 has a 1.5 times crop on your sensor. So it does punch in on the sensor. So if you're using a wide angle lens, let's say you're using a 16 millimeter, it's actually more of like a 24 millimeter. Check my math there. But that's something to take into consideration. For me personally, when I first got the camera, I think it's because everybody talked about how annoying it was. I was kind of like hyper fixated on it. But honestly, after owning the camera for 3 years, I hardly even notice it anymore. Like in certain situations, like if you're gonna vlog with it in 4K 60, then yeah, it might be a little more difficult because it's gonna punch in on it. But in most situations, you probably don't even notice it. And then honestly, really, I don't know why you'd really be vlogging in 4K 60, because usually I shoot all of my content in 4K 30 or 24. It's just a little more cinematic personally. But I guess it just depends on what you're going to shoot. So keep that in mind. If you're planning on 4K 60 constantly, then that might be an issue for you. But as a newer creator, probably not. It's probably not going to matter. Forgot to mention that the price, so an A7IV still kind of goes for that $2,000 to $2,500 range even today, and it's been out for 3 years. Sometimes though, if you can find it on sale, you might even be able to find it for like $1,800, and if you go for a used one, then you could probably cut that down by another couple $100. Personally, I think the investment makes sense, especially as you're getting started, because you can use this camera for another 3 years, 4 years, and not even have to worry about it. Alright, so there you have it. Here's a few reasons as to why I think the A7IV should be your first camera, especially in 2025. There's not been a better time to actually pick up this camera because you can find one used and you can just jump right in and save yourself a bunch of money, and it's going to be an amazing camera that can do literally everything. From photo, video, product photography. You can use that as a webcam if you'd really like, if you're streaming. Fills every single niche, and it has features that some of the heavyweight cameras, flagship cameras, don't even have for Sony. It's been upgraded and improved on as firmwares have rolled out and features have come out for it over time. You get access to all of those firmware updates immediately when you get started. So you're pretty much getting a different camera than even what I purchased it at 3 years ago. So just to recap, it has amazing autofocus, it has an amazing sensor that you can get incredibly detailed images with, and then it has an amazing autofocus system that honestly, if you're a newer creator, autofocus is going to be a lifesaver for you, and you really want to be able to rely on it once you're just getting started. So the Sony A7IV would definitely be the camera that I would pick up if I was just getting started in 2025. If you found this video helpful, definitely drop me a thumbs up. It lets me know that I'm doing a good job and helps push the video through the YouTube algorithm. And if you want more tips, tricks, and inspiration through photography, videography, definitely drop me a sub. That's the type of content that I'm posting here. I really just want to inspire people to pursue photography and videography as their hobby, and then turn that into their passion project, and then eventually lead that into their business. Just remember, let's continue to create. Definitely go pick up that first camera and jump right in, and it'll change your life. I promise you. Peace.